Hello, it is I, Ray Skywalker Ren, Shepherd of your dreams. This is the first video that I will be making on this particular channel. Um, if you want to know where I am on Twitter, you can follow me, Ray underscore Skywalker 3. For this channel, this is going to be my vlogging thoughts and a bunch of other stuff. So let's get started. Now, I've been thinking about making this kind of video ever since I came out as non-binary on Twitter and to my friends, because I actually want to help other people that may be feeling the exact same way that I am. So I decided to put together a video about what non-binary people want to hear versus what they should hear. And this is just my thoughts. I did do a little bit of research on certain topics to give a little bit of context behind what I'm going to be saying. However, just understand that this video is not meant to be mean-spirited. If you feel that I am wrong, please let me know. I'm not, this is just my opinions on certain things, and this is just my experience with being non-binary. So everybody's experiences may vary. So without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, first things first. What non-binary people want to hear is that pronouns are mandatory and we shouldn't feel bad about taking a stand or putting our foot down. However, in my experience, what non-binary people need to hear is that you need to be patient and understanding. And here's why. The truth is that a stranger not using they and them pronouns is not misgendering, because you cannot appear non-binary. Non-binary does not have a look. For example, I am a biological female and I present as a biological female, even though I am non-binary. So therefore, people will call me female pronouns unless I correct them. It's the same thing with biological males who identify as non-binary. Nobody can appear non-binary. You either look either or. Even biological women who identify as women can be misgendered as biological men. All it takes is to say, hey, my pronouns are this and this, and correct them and move on. That's all you have to do. For me, it's kind of been an easy experience. I just tell them, hey, I'm non-binary, and they accept it and move on. Now, not a lot of people will be accepting, or not a lot of people will understand, and that's okay. What we as non-binary people need to do is be more understanding and compassionate, because non-binary is pretty much a new thing. Let's be understanding about that. It hasn't really existed for a long time. It's only existed recently. It's kind of been around for a long time, but nobody can really put a name to it. However, there's been a certain uprising of people wanting to fit under the non-binary umbrella. So a lot of the terms that we hear today are very new to a lot of other people, including your family members. Now, let's talk about friends and family. Definitely be very understanding and be patient with your friends and family, especially with your friends. I'm in a friend group, and when I told my partner that I was non-binary, they told me not to expect them to use gender-neutral pronouns, which I understand because this is new for them. We've been together for almost a year, and I'm just now coming out to them as non-binary, so they're gonna be caught off guard. Now, when it comes to friends, one of my friends told me that they weren't gonna call me gender-neutral pronouns. And I'll be honest with you, I did cry for a little bit because I felt that person didn't respect me. But when I thought about it and I said, It's not that they don't respect me. They still care about me. This is just so new to them that their knee-jerk reaction is to reject it. And I totally understand where they're coming from. This is new to them, and I'm just coming out to them. You know, give it some time. All I have to say is give it some time. Just a gentle reminder to them. If they refuse, give them some time. They're still your friends. They still care about you. It's just new to them. You know, the biggest thing that I have to say about this is just be patient and give your friend some time. Give the world time to really understand and interact you as you are, and once you do, then they will be more than happy to refer to you as your preferred pronouns. Now, this is another one that I hear a lot. What non-binary people like hearing, and they grab onto this a lot, is that there are legally recognized third genders in other countries, such as India and Mexico, and there's even a quote unquote third gender in most Native American tribes. But what non binary people need to hear and what they need to understand, we need to understand, because I'm putting myself in that, I am non binary, is that there's a big difference between cultural significance and biological significance, or is it scientifically valid? The truth is that, things like the Hydra and Two Spirit are more of a spiritual validation. You know, Two Spirit is a spiritual validation. Most Native American tribes practice around their religion, and Two Spirit is coming from their spirituality. It's not biologically a thing, it's not biologically valid. There is no valid third gender scientifically. It's just a cultural significance, and that's why they hold on to that culture, because that's part of their spirituality, that's part of their religion. Now, a little tip about the Hydra, though. The Hydra didn't become a official thing until 2015. The Hydra started coming up in a centuries-old sex textbook. I know. I had to look this up, but it's kind of interesting how it came about. Hydra are actually biological males who are either female, or they transition to be female, or they believe they are female. There's a neurological misalignment in the brain that tells them that they're female, which in the Western world we refer to as modern day transgenderism. I think that's a little bit too big of a term, but to us we refer to that as a transgender woman. But in Southeast Asia, Hydra is a biological male who can either be, neurologically a woman, or they don't believe that they're neither a man or a woman. So notice how in places like India, the cultural significance is that Hydra, biological males who transition to be females, they can be lumped in with people who are biologically males, and a lot of times they don't transition, but they don't feel like they're biologically male. But the thing I'm trying to tell you is that is a cultural signifier. That is more cultural. It's a cultural validity. There's no scientific validity, because at the end of the day, biologically there are males and females. The Hydra are biological males. There is another gender in India. It starts with an E. I should have written this down, but these are biological males that have been castrated. It's a spiritual thing. I'm not Indian, so I don't really know a lot about India, but I had to look that part up. But yeah, I also want to get into another thing that drives home my point about cultural significance and how something that is culturally valid is not really scientifically valid. Do you know that in Japan we have a deity of rain and snow called Kuraokami? Kuraokami is actually a dragon that controls rain and snow. Um, just want to put that out there. But that is a cultural validity. People actually believe that such a deity exists, even though we in the real world know that dragons can't control rain and snow. Scientifically, they can't. It's the same thing with your third genders. While they are legally recognized by the Supreme Courts because they're culturally valid, it doesn't make them biologically valid, if you understand what I'm getting at. Alright, so last but not least, this one's kind of a doozy, kind of. I'm gonna have to explain it a little bit, but I believe other transgender YouTubers have already explained it in depth. So, yeah. So, what non binary people want to hear is that you don't necessarily need gender dysphoria to be transgender, and that's because a lot of non binary people identify with the transgender label despite not being formally diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Now, I will point out that there are some that have, but most of us have not. But what we need to hear is that most of us don't have gender dysphoria, therefore, we cannot be trans. We can have issues with our body parts that would drive us to need certain medications like testosterone or estrogen. You can get those without having gender dysphoria. However, I think it goes through a different process if you don't have gender dysphoria. I looked up how to get testosterone, and for testosterone in particular, I learned that there's a difference between testosterone replacement and testosterone hormone therapy. In order to get that type of therapy, you would need to be formally diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Your counselor would have to legally say this person has gender dysphoria. If you go to your counselor and your counselor does not believe, or your doctor does not believe that you have gender dysphoria, then you don't have it. And if you don't have it, it means you're not transgender. When I came out as non-binary, I did talk to a counselor, and they did say that under the certain criteria, I cannot be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. Now, there is criteria that you must meet to be diagnosed with gender dysphoria. You can't just walk into your doctor's office and say, hey, I believe I'm born in the wrong body, give me testosterone. No, it doesn't work that way. There is actual criteria that one must go through, and they have to fit 2 or more things. And the things that I'm listing is not, it's just scratching the surface. Now, 1, you have to have a strong desire to transition to the opposite sex. Listen to the verbiage, the opposite sex. So if you were assigned male at birth and you want to be female, then you have a strong urge to become that opposite sex, or else it's gonna damage your mental health. Now, another thing is that you have an urge to get rid of primary or secondary sex characteristics of the gender that you are, and you desire the characteristics of the opposite gender that you want to be. And which is very true, especially if you are a transgender child. I've heard of them like saying, oh, I want to cut my penis off because it's dysphoric to them, and it causes them a lot of anxiety and pain. Same thing with breasts. But the thing about non-binary folks like myself and a lot of us are this way, is that we may feel dysphoric about our chest one day, but then the next day we can be totally okay with it. And a lot of times we would want to emphasize it. Or one day I may want to wear a dress. eh, Me in particular, because I'm a biological female, I may want to wear a dress, and then the next day I may want to wear clothing that's traditionally associated with men, and I may want to wear a suit and a tie. Um, but somebody with gender dysphoria would not want to flip flop like that. You know, there's tomboys, but they're not transgender. They're just, women who have some masculine traits, but they're women. You know, if you have gender dysphoria, you would not want to wear clothing associated with the gender that you were assigned. That's just one of the criteria of gender dysphoria, especially if you're younger, and especially relevant today. You know, even, even then, you know, most non-binary people don't really transition. They'll fix one thing, like they'll go on testosterone to have a lower voice, or they'll have top surgery or bottom surgery, but they don't really do much to transition. And that's what I'm trying to get at, you know, to get at. To be transgender, you need gender dysphoria, because that is the driving force for you to transition. But if you don't have that, what is there for you to want to transition? What is there for me to want to transition? And what biological opposite sex would I want to transition to if I am okay with how I am, or I want to change certain aspects of I am, but the next day I'll be like, you know what, let me emphasize this. So that's what people really need to understand. Alright, everybody, that's the end of this video. I hope you enjoy this. See you later. Bye.